Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get started. We are now on our final presentation, and I would like to introduce Miranda Raymond from Pella Community Schools.
Hello. So I'm going to start with giving some information about myself. My Twitter handle's up here and also my email. So if you have any questions that you don't get to ask me, you can always email me. So that's up there for you. So I actually grew up in Carroll, Iowa, which isn't too far from here, and it's also in the Heartland AEA. And I'm now in Pella, which is a similar sized town of Carroll, so that's kind of nice. My family is very involved in education, and my brother made this, which I think is kind of funny. My dad is a principal at the middle school in Carroll, and my mom is a high school geometry teacher there. And my brother is he's in his first year at DCG as a math teacher. So I'm really excited to have him go through what I went through a couple years ago. And then there's me in the bottom right. And this is so funny. He's going to hate me that I did this. This is my youngest brother. He's a senior right now at Carroll, and he's Tiger of the Week this week. So he vows not to go into education. And I'm like, you're crazy. So he probably thinks we're crazy. He wants to be a lawyer. So if any of us get in trouble, then we can call him and he can help us out. He's going to visit Iowa next week, Friday. So I'm kind of excited to see where he'll end up. So yeah. And I went to the University of Iowa, so I'm a Hawkeye fan. And I majored in secondary English education there. There's my family with Herky. And then I student taught at Kennedy High School in Cedar Rapids, which is a huge school, and it was really different for me coming from Carroll. It was a wonderful experience, and I loved being there. And then I graduated in December, so I did a long-term subbing position in an English classroom at West High. And that was nice to be able to see the spring side of school before I got into my first year. And then this is my third year at Pella High. So I'm young, but as you can see, education has been a topic at the dinner table for my whole life. So it was kind of exciting to be able to call my mom or my dad for help or advice. And I think that gave me an advantage as a first-year teacher. So I currently teach 4 sections of English 10, 1 section of communication skills, which is a DMAC vocational credit, and 1 section of advanced writing, which is similar to like a college comp class. So I have a philosophy on technology in the classroom, and Pella is a big AIW school, so we're always talking about substantive conversation and publishing to an outside audience, so you can read through this. But basically, I like using technology to enhance those things, and I think it's a great way to engage kids and get them excited about it. So yeah, and I'm going to show you 3 different ways that I'm able to do that in my classrooms. So my goal is to give you some enthusiasm and spark some creativity for you to take with you when you leave here today. So the first strategy I'm going to talk about, some of you might have heard of the fishbowl or Socratic seminar before. My goal this year is to really work on substantive conversation, and I think it does a great job at allowing kids to really be the center of the classroom. So I've used this strategy in all 3 classes I teach, and communication skills is an interesting class because it's a lot of kids who are there just to get the English credit. And the first day I tell them we'll never read a book and we'll never write a paper, and they literally fist bump into the air. So in advanced writing, I've used it in English 10, so it's great to be able to use in many different classes. It's typically a 2-day lesson depending on the content. So we'll either read something or we'll watch something the first day and they prep for it, and then the second day we have the discussion. So if you haven't heard of fishbowl, it's kind of interesting because it's like a fishbowl. And the inner group is inside the fishbowl, and then the outside group are the observers. So they kind of have different roles, and then we'll switch, and then they take turns being inside the fishbowl. Sometimes they get freaked out when I switch the room around. They walk in and they look at me, what are you doing? Why are we doing this today? And they end up really loving it. And there's so many different ways you can use a fishbowl discussion. So if you're inside the fishbowl, you are the ones discussing questions from the reading or viewing. Sometimes I give the questions beforehand, sometimes they create them. It just depends on what we're doing. I've done it both ways. The only people talking are the ones inside the fishbowl. Everyone outside must remain silent. We make that very clear that the outside people aren't distracting them and they're not talking. And I'm not talking. The only people talking are those inside. Sometimes we appoint a leader depending on what type of class. Some people just automatically become the leader because that's who they are. And they'll either guide the discussion or transition or read the questions. And I always time it because they will talk forever. I just did this yesterday in advanced writing, and it was like 13 minutes. I'm like, guys, we gotta keep going. So I always time it and kind of let them know we gotta move on to the next group. So if you're outside the fishbowl, that's where the technology comes into play, and I love how this works. So students outside the fishbowl are required to be absolutely silent, and they are using this website called Today's Meet as a back channel, and it is wonderful. So I'll kind of explain how that's worked. So some tips for today's meet, if you go to the website, you create a classroom, and I always do something pretty easy to remember, like my last name and then the period number. You can choose how long you want the classroom to be open, and I usually do about a week just because I like to go back and check things if a day might not be long enough. And then you ask kids to log on to the classroom by typing in the URL you created. So if you chose Raymond 1 as your class period, then they just type in todaysmeet.com/Raymond1. It's different from Google Classroom where you have to type in a code, so they kind of get a little confused with that at first. This next part's really funny. So they can pick a nickname. Sometimes they can do their first name. I have them do their first name if they want to. Other times, if kids want to remain anonymous, they can pick a nickname. And we were cracking up at the lunch table yesterday talking about different nicknames kids have come up with. And I was going to put some examples up here, but then I took them down because I didn't know the humor we would have in here. But my advanced writing class, they were pretty good with it. But we were joking around, and one kid said, "Put naughty girl as an example." I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I just left it blank, but you can probably get an idea. It's like Twitter because there's only 140 characters, so they're limited to what they can type, which is nice. And I always display the feed on a projector so everyone in the room can see it. And I'll give an example of why that works really well in a second. So this is what the website looks like. It's very user-friendly, I think. And basically, you pick a name for your room, you can choose how long you want it to be open, and then you open your room. And this is one I'll use later, but this is what it looks like when you open your room. So you type in a nickname, and then you click it in, and then you can see the feed pop up here. So it's very user-friendly and pretty easy to move throughout. Okay. So some examples that I give them on sentence starters for how they can talk on the Today's Meet back channel is they can comment on a response to a question from someone inside the fishbowl. So they'll say, I really enjoyed how John brought up the example about blah, blah, blah. Or they can ask a clarifying question. What do you think John meant when he said this can connect to World War II? So then other kids might, zone in and talk about that for a little bit. The third one is to make a noteworthy observation, like, have you all noticed how John continuously supports his ideas by using examples? Now, kids aren't going to type that wonderful, beautiful sentence, but they do like to shout out their friends. So another one is to provide your own insight to something mentioned. So an example could be, I've worked in retail before and I disagree with John's statement. We actually talked about abolishing the penny as one of our articles that we read, and one of the kids had worked at Walmart and he was talking about that, and someone else had worked at Walmart on the outside, and so that's where I got that example from. So, and then why it's worked, kids who are really shy or quiet and inside the fishbowl, they freak out. It gives them a chance to talk on the back channel. So if I'm grading this, I can go to that and I can search their name, and then I'm able to kind of see what they said on the back channel. Another thing is I used to do fishbowls, and the people on the outside of the fishbowl were kind of stuck. I was stuck with what to do with them. Sometimes I'd have them take notes. Sometimes I'd have them just watch. And it just felt like they were either bored or zoned out. And I like that it's, kids get excited about it. They crack up and laugh and think it's funny. But it's also a good way for them to converse and have a role outside the fishbowl. And then it's also, you're able to use it in many different settings, which I enjoy because I teach 3 different classes. So example, we always come up with norms. Sometimes I give them the norms and sometimes they come up with them themselves. So some examples are to be respectful, allow everyone a chance to talk, build off each other's comments or opinions. You can disagree, but you need to do so politely. And we talk about how important it is to back up your claim with evidence, either from the movie we watched or from the text that we read. So here's an example. We actually just did this yesterday in advanced writing. We were working on personal narrative essays, and I'm a big advocate for reading really good works before they write, because I think it's nice for them to see an example. So we read this beautiful piece called Shame by Dick Gregory and then Salvation by Langston Hughes. And weirdly, they're kind of, they have kind of similar themes. And it was so crazy because when they started, well, one group read Shame and one group read Salvation. So the group that was outside the fishbowl had not read what the inner group had. And I was kind of nervous about it because I thought, I wonder if they won't have anything to talk about. But they came up with some really cool connections. So as you can see, it's a pretty short piece, front and back. And then the Salvation is similar size, so they don't get mad if they think they got the longer one. And then, so here's an example. Oh, we do a discussion prep. So here's a link to that. And this one had, I think, 10 questions that they had to answer. So they had to fill this out, and it's just questions about the piece, about the thesis, the conflict, tension, tone, all of those things. And we talk about the so what every time we read something and when they write something. So they read that one, they read this, and then they prepared. And then the day of, so here's an example from yesterday, the feed that the back channel that we used. So they're funny. They start out saying, hello, hello, hello. And then they made observations. So they talked about discussing the thesis. They talked about themes. They talked about conflict. And it's funny how they started making connections. They were saying, you know, it's funny how the one that we read also dealt with shame. And it was just really neat. So then they switched, and then the next group went, and they were just funny. Katie's the leader. Way to start, Katie. Adam's the smartest in the group. And then they kind of get down to business and start talking about it. So it was really neat. And I'll show you this later, but there's a part up here, right here. It says conflicts are similar in both stories. There's internal and external. So one of the girls in the fishbowl started talking about how she noticed that the conflicts were similar in both of the essays, that they were internal and external. And at the same time, someone posted this on the feed, and it was crazy. And we did a timeout. I said, oh my gosh, someone else noticed the same thing that you did. And we all looked up there, and they thought it was really neat that they were kind of making those connections together without even knowing it. So sometimes they ask questions, and at one point, actually, a student saw a question on the feed, and she said, hey, can we stop because they have a question about what we're talking about. So we did a timeout, and then we talked about that, and then we moved on. So, and then I think I have a video on this next one here. Yes, so I videotaped this yesterday, and I'm just gonna how can I move this up? That's great, okay. So we'll just watch about a minute and a half of this, and you will see this student right here is the one who says the conflict, and then you'll hear me chime in, and we'll talk about that, so.
Or since he didn't come tell me, it's like, you know, what you said, that like, because of this, he starts to doubt, like, his religious convictions and starts to doubt
See, this is
whether,
the inside
you know,
of
like,
the
whether or
fishbowl,
not
and
there
this is the
a Jesus,
outside
or, you know,
back here.
It's a bit, yeah.
I think you could almost say that there are two conflicts. One, the conflict that other people see that he doesn't go up, and that's resolved with him just going up, although he doesn't, see Jesus or feel Jesus or however you want to phrase it. And the other conflict that's coming up is his personal conflict with just going up and not really like feeling something.
Definitely both an internal and like external conflict
Yeah.
in the story.
Someone literally just put up their internal and external right when you said that. That's really cool.
Good job.
And I think kind of to continue on that point, they don't really resolve the internal point.
Yeah,
Right.
they just kind of like leave it at,
Mm-hmm.
there's not really a Jesus, or he's doubting it. And he feels that guilt or that shame from it. And so then that's where it leaves off, I guess.
I kind of felt like his internal conflict, he was just so overcome with emotions by everybody just hounding him.
Yeah.
He was just like, all right.
The
I'm just
internal
gonna give
conflict
in.
gave into the external conflict
Yeah.
in a way.
So his internal conflict gave in, I like.
I love how there's 6 or so of them in the group, and if you notice, every single one of them talked. So I love how you get this smaller group in the middle rather than like this whole entire class in a circle trying to talk. It really focuses on a small group, and within the minute, every single one of them had said something or nodded their head or showed that they were paying attention. So, okay, and then So here in another class that I did, communication skills, we watched The King's Speech, which is a beautiful movie, and we do a theme tracker. So their prep is throughout the movie, they're tracking these different themes, power, determination, family, overcoming obstacles. So while they're watching the movie, they have all these different examples of the themes. And then the day of the fishbowl, I don't give them the questions beforehand. So this one's a little different than the advanced writing one. They get the questions the day of the actual fishbowl. So we go over the norms, we talk about the order of events. So there were 3 groups that were on the inside this time. And it took the whole entire, like the last group, I had to stop them because the bell was going to ring. And mind you, this is my class where I have the star basketball player, and then I have the guys who ride up in their trucks and have their cowboy boots on, and then I have the girls that are really quiet, and it's just such a variety. So I love doing this in a class like that. And I was kind of nervous because I thought, I wonder if they'll, take this and do well with it, and they did great. So, so the first group went in and they discussed these 3 questions and these 3 themes. The second group had the next 3 themes and the next 3 questions. In the last group, dealt with the last 2 themes and 3 questions. So the nice thing about this one is everyone had watched the same movie. So the people on the back channel, even though they weren't in the middle discussing family and friendship, they could talk about it on the back channel while they were discussing it too. So here's an example of a rubric. So what I do when I'm watching this is I don't say anything, and it's kind of nice. I get to sit back and let them do everything. And a fellow teacher of mine made this, and I love it so much. It works really well. It's whoopsie. It looks kind of daunting at first, but the nice thing about it is, if I can move that up, is you put the student's name in. So if it was a group at a time, I only had to write down 6 or 7 names, and then I draw a line, and then I literally just make tally marks throughout it. So if someone was disrespectful or off topic, I might make a check here. If someone connected to the outside world, I'll make a check. I told them about the includes others, so I had a couple girls say, okay, Johnny, let's hear what you have to say. So they got a check. And then using text examples. And so after the first fishbowl, I stopped and I congratulated some kids. I called them out and said, hey, Sally, you did a great job. You had 3 different outside references. So that kind of gives them a reward for doing well at the end. And then I might say, like, you guys didn't do too hot on the using text examples, so the next group, let's work on that. And then there's a column for the back channel as well. So another nice thing I forgot to mention is, so here's my back channel for advanced writing. Let's say I wanted to search a kid, so I think it's just Command F is what you do. Yeah, so one of my students, her nickname is Butterfly. And so when I search Butterfly, it pops up and it highlights their name. So when I go through this, I can just find Butterfly, and then I know what she said. So it's kind of an easy way to grade it if you're using that for your rubric. Okay, so I think we're moving on. Yeah, so we're going to do a sample fishbowl here. And I have given you a very short article about dictation technology. And dictation technology is basically when you speak into something and it creates something for you. So in your text messages, some iPhones have this where you can talk into it and it creates the text message. They're saying that in the future, students will write essays this way. And it's kind of a controversial topic. So I think what we can do here is maybe I just have one group come over here. So line up this back group. You can stay where you're at while you're reading, but you'll be a part of this fishbowl, and the rest of you will be part of this fishbowl. So if you take 5 minutes or so and read the article, there are some questions on, and you can skim it because the questions are pretty straightforward about typing and teaching typing. And then we'll get into a fishbowl, and you can decide who you want in the middle, and then I'll show you how we'll do the feed. So I'll give you about 5 minutes or so to read it and fill out some notes on the questions, and then we'll talk about it. So I'm a little jealous because whenever I do something in my class, I kind of wish that I could be a student and just see what it feels like. So I think it'll be interesting to see what it feels like from the perspective of being a student, because so many times we're in front of the room. So thank you for being my guinea pigs and trying it out. There's 2 links up here. So there's a Today's Meet, HAA, TIC 1, and then there's TIC 2. So we'll do TIC 1 over here, and then TIC 2, you can be over here. And why don't you decide who's going to be in the middle of the fishbowl? So we probably should have about 7, 8 people in the middle, and the rest of you can be on the outside. And if we're spread out far enough, we probably won't have the problem of overhearing each other. So why don't this group's going to go over here, and the rest of you over here, and kind of get into a fishbowl area, I guess.
Sometimes when I try and spell out a word, I think of how I would type it.
Yeah.
Because you always get that red squiggly line underneath it. Whereas, and it's that textile. You've got the kinesthetic with the visual, and I think with dictation, it's just going to automatically spell it for you, and you're not going to have that like, oh, I spelled it wrong. Now I have to go back and fix it, or instead of erasing it, you're deleting it or whatever. So I think you'd lose a lot of that spelling, maybe even the grammar that you wouldn't.
We were kind of discussing that with some of those dictations. You have to say comma, period.
That's annoying.
So is that...
Well, just from the efficiency standpoint, kids, even if you have to spend, the actual production of your writing might be faster, but going back and revising and editing, making mostly the editing is going to take so much longer. Especially with dictation not being, it's not good now.
Right.
I think for it to replace typing is probably a few years out.
Yeah, the skill of the dictation tool that you're using. Can it recognize homonyms on phones?
Right. But how do you know what you're going to say? Like, how do you even, your ideas and your organizations, you're just going to sit there and talk, and then it's going to be, because you know how you are when you type, you're writing out a sentence, you're like, I don't like this one, and so you go back, and so I feel like it's going to take twice as long, if not 3 times as long.
Writing is already
dictation.
a recursive process, going back and looking, and I agree, it would add an extra step.
And if you don't know what you're saying in the middle of it, it's all going to show up in your writing, and so you're going to have to go back and edit that out. I feel like it's going to take so much pre-teaching to kind of change mindsets as to you don't dictate the same way that you talk. Like when I speak, I say like all the time. My dad gets on me all the time that I say like and or. But when I'm typing, I don't have that because I know that's. But it's just, I think, changing mindsets. Dictation is not the same, so I think that would be really hard for students, especially if they stop in the middle of a word and then they don't know exactly what they're going to say, and they have to go back and revise a lot of it.
I do think it's got benefits as assistive technology. I mean, I have a student with dysgraphia who's literally not allowed to write anything by hand, and even typing is a struggle for him. So something like voice typing is very useful. But the other things that we talked about, I think, kind of outweigh that. But I think of like sci-fi movies or Star Trek. There's Captain's Log. They're doing that by voice, and that's like the vision of the future that a lot of people have, that it's just going to go away. I don't know. I feel like the value in seeing the word and knowing the punctuation and all of that kind of outweighs it.
You walk into a meeting and your technology isn't working.
Yeah.
And you can't spell or write. That's going to be a problem. We all know how technology can be, and at any time it's not working and you need to complete something.
Or you're taking notes during a presentation and you don't know how to type it. Well, I'm not going to be speaking into my computer while somebody's presenting. And I think the other question is, how do you have, you give, let's say, designated writing time. Well, how do you have a class of 30 students who are all speaking into their computers? Is it going to pick up what you're saying? Is it going to pick up what the person next to me is saying? How will it differentiate between my voice and somebody else's voice?
I just know I talk to my cell phone all the time to text somebody, and I don't always read back what it says, and a lot of the time it puts something really bad in there I did not mean to say.
Like you see that, have you seen the YouTube video of a kid? He's asking Alexa to search something, and then it searches something very inappropriate. Well, it doesn't take into account he's a little child and he's not probably pronouncing words the way he's supposed to. Well, you don't want that in.
Yeah, my Echo doesn't do a good job listening to me either.
The only thing it ever hears me say is, "You're stupid." It doesn't understand me.
So yeah. But I know my own daughter has a speech issue. She has a forked uvula, and so she can't say her R's very well. And so her phone never picks up any R word, which there's a lot. It doesn't quite pick up, so she will talk and send it, and I'll have to send back, text it.
Okay,
Like,
so this
don't
is why I
talk
have
it,
to do a
text
timer
it.
because I know you would talk forever. This was
Thank
so
you.
awesome. I had a lot of fun here because I read this article, and it's interesting to see what other people had to say. I loved you guys pointed out about how kids use certain words in their papers. That is always a big one. So having them talk it out, and then you can see like and yeah. So I thought that was interesting. I just heard that at the end. Okay, cool. Why don't you can go back to your original places, and in the meantime, before we go to the last two things I have to share, if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer them. Yeah.
Does the outside circle? What do you do with the outside circle? Do they ever give feedback? Do they ever get a chance to talk, or is this just simply to keep them engaged?
Okay. Yeah. So if I'm correct, you asked about the outside circle, and in this example, they were not inside at all. You guys were only on the outside, and then we moved on. In a class period, the people on the outside, make sure I'm answering this right, eventually get the chance to be on the inside. So we switch after each time. So you're only on the outside for one round, and then you're on the inside. So I sometimes, if I feel like I noticed they didn't talk too much on the inside, I would go to the back channel and search their name to see if they were really conversing on that and they were just kind of burnt out and didn't want to talk as much on the inside. So I use that as a way to kind of help those kids that might be a little more shy. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
How many students do you find is, because I've used this a lot in my classroom, and if I just divide my classes into two groups, 12 is still too big in the middle, and if I separate them out, I can't really monitor what's going on with multiple groups. So I'm a little curious as to how many students you have in your classes and how you break them up.
Advanced writing this semester only has 12 kids, which is really nice. So I did 6 in the middle and then 6 on the outside. My communication skills is always huge. I usually have around 30. So we did the 3 rounds, and there was, I think, about 8 kids. Well, it would have been 9 or 10. So that part, it got a little bit hectic. And we did 3 rounds, so we had 10 in the middle, 10 in the middle, 10 in the middle. But the back channel is nice because if the group is bigger on the inside and they felt like they didn't get a chance to talk, they could showcase it another chance on the outside. Yeah.
And do you ever have your outside circles critiquing the nature of the discussion? Like Socratic?
I have not.
Socratic book recommends.
I haven't dug into Socratic as much. It's only I love to check into Socratic more. I know they do. They like tag in and things like that, don't they? And they'll have a coach or someone who kind of helps them.
They can.
Yeah. Sometimes on the back channel they will give advice, or they will say, "Do you mean like if Chandler? Can you talk more about that point?"
No,
that kind of thing.
More things like observing gender dynamics within the circle.
Oh, okay.
Who emerged as the leader and how well did they do, or.
Yeah, I have not done that. I would love to add something like that in, though. I think it would be interesting. And I could even, as a teacher, put something on there for them to talk about on the outside, I guess, if they weren't getting it. Maybe. I'm sorry. I hope I'm answering.
No, that's great. I'm just thinking, wow, if you have 3 groups, you could have one group critiquing and you could have one
You
group
could, yes.
discussing outside
Yes.
and one group discussing.
And this could be a 3-day thing. I mean, it could end up being a final assessment that you really hit home. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do? Like, I know in our group, we spent the whole time and we only got one question answered. So what do you do if you have 5 questions, you want them all to get discussed, but yet you're having really good quality discussions?
I think that's the most important part, is that the discussion is quality. And you know what? If we continue on for another 10 minutes, or if we want to go into the next day, we will do that. I mean, if it's going so well like that, then I have no problem extending the time or going into the next day. There does get to a time where you kind of have to move on. And sometimes if you appoint a leader, the leader might be someone who interrupts and says, okay guys, we're having great discussion, but we got to get to number 2. So you can kind of adjust that however you would like. But we had someone come and talk to us about substantive conversation, and they said if it's quality, then you let it go. And if you want to continue on the next day, you continue on to the next day. So you can adjust it however you would like, I think. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I usually do Socratic seminars, and I was just going to follow up about the questions. So,
yeah.
Do you ever let them do their own questions? Because
Mm-hmm.
I have only seniors, and so I really released control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the idea of giving them questions, but I also like for them to be able to come up with their own questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think are the?
We did a persuasive essay similar to the personal narrative, and the prep for that was a lot different than the personal narrative one, because this is the first fishbowl we did, so it was kind of structured. So the personal narrative, I've kind of released it to them, and I have a section on there where it says come up with 2 or 3 discussion questions that you would like to use. So the first time it's more structured, but then the second time we do. Mm-hmm. And that has worked really well. They would come up with great questions. So. Yeah.
If you would want to keep the structure of the content, but
yes.
Thinking that I feel like that they need to be figuring out what questions to make.
Yes. We did it with Of Mice and Men with my sophomores, and it went pretty well. Some questions I couldn't use because they were ridiculous, and some of them were really great, and they probably stole off the internet, but it's fine. At least they can determine which ones are good and which ones aren't, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, one last question. Okay.
That's fine.
Our students have a really tough time. We don't block social media or anything, so how do you go, your classroom management, what does that look like?
That's tough. I mean, sometimes, especially with this, I can't have my, the land school up checking them because I have this up on, or the feed up on there. But I really haven't noticed an issue with it. There probably are kids who will click out and then click back in and do things like that, but and if it's part of the rubric, then you can say, I know the temptation's there. I don't know. That's tough.
I think if you tie it to a grade,
yeah. I think if they know it's part of the rubric, like what you say on the today's meet is a part of it, then I think they do take it a little bit more seriously. But I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes when I'm on my computer, I quick check my email or whatever. So I don't know how, yeah. But my role is to sit and listen, and I would rather do that than try to police all the different things they're on, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Do you ever have kids follow up with anything from today's meet discussion? Like, if I'm a student now, will I be able to access today's meet?
Yeah.
After today?
Yes, for a whole week.
What I would do with it?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure maybe some kids. I know a freshman teacher, she had kids going back on it and talking still after the class period had ended. So it's kind of nice that they still have access to it. But after it's done, we don't really, I might show up there and we kind of scroll through it and I see this was so great or this was awesome. But after that, we don't really, we could. I mean, you definitely could do something.
You can download them as a PDF too.
Yeah, you can yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So the last 2 things are very short, but if anyone's heard of Goodreads, I love it so much. I just get so excited about it. I have my comp teacher from high school. I follow him, and he has thousands of books he's read. So whenever I need a new book to read, I go to his profile, and I see which ones he really liked. So it's a virtual bookshelf. It's a way to connect with friends. You can pick your next book that way. I usually pick my next book that way. You can set goals for yourself. There's also author and reader interaction, which is really neat. And I read Eleanor Park, which if any of you have read Eleanor Park, it's a beautiful book. And the ending is such a cliffhanger. So I went on there and I found the discussion for it, and I kind of got some closure. So that was nice. So we do book clubs, and I have such a hard time because we do a quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 book club thing. And every time I'm like, what am I going to do this quarter? So 3rd quarter, we do the Goodreads project, which they love so much. And it ends up being a book review. So throughout the quarter, we break their book up into 4ths, and we have book clubs, and they talk about their books. And then at the end, they do a Goodreads project where they write a book review. And I have the link to the document I created that they follow. So I walk them through how to create their account, and then they kind of have a checklist on what they need to follow if it's fiction or nonfiction. They do a character description, reactions to the book, advice for potential readers, and then they post it on the Goodreads platform. So Goodreads, if I open it up, it should go to my account, and this is so cool. So already you can see one of my students, her reviews is on the top. So she reviewed Gone Girl, and then another student reviewed this Curveball book, and if I scroll down, these are all my students. Nantucket Blue, we have all these are all, it's really cool. And then I noticed like, oh, Megan's friends with Evan now. So you can friend each other, and they love friending me, which is kind of weird. But I have a personal Goodreads, and this is my teacher one, so I don't have as many books on here. I haven't been on it in a while, but what?
I had a student get on some inappropriate stuff on there.
Yeah, you have to be careful with the book. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
And then chatting with other people.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. I've only done this last year, so that's nice to know that in the future, yeah. But so I give them an example of a book review that they can look at, and then it's another one of my students also has read it, so my friend review shows up there. And I think this is the one that I created. Yeah, so this was my book review that I posted for them to kind of follow if they wanted to see an example. And the reason why I love it so much is because kids love the idea of social media and creating a profile. They can add books they've already read, and they can view other people's reviews. They can post their own review to an open forum that anybody can read. They can use it for their future life, because I use it now, and they can friend each other, and it creates an atmosphere of excitement around reading, which I think is so important. So I had one girl, she put her Goodreads account in her Instagram, her Twitter bio, all these things, so they loved it. And the last thing I wanted to quick talk about is this Cliptomize. It's a project we did for a semester final. We read The Book Thief and Night, and we combined it together, and they did these Cliptomize books. This was an option. There was a group option, so there were 2 options they could do. And I had the assignment overview here if you wanted to look at it, and then this is the website. It's wonderful. I actually would use it in my own life, like without being in school, because they do like recipe books and things like that. So here are some examples of people who have used it. It's super user-friendly. There's a way you can pick the theme you want. So I have examples of these, and I can just pass them around if you want to look at them. I brought a bunch of them. So this is the first year I've used this, and it went really well. And then I had the other option where they could make a video. So they picked an essential question, and that was their theme. And then they had to pick quotes, and they had to connect it, and they had to pick images and symbols. And this was a really nice way for kids who aren't like the artsy. It's a really structured way for them to do it online, and they loved it. So it was really neat to see them explore it and use it how they wanted. So, all right, my last I've got to do a shout out to Mr. Murphy, who volunteered my name without telling me, and then he ironically got sick for 3 days afterwards and I was not able to find him. So I was really excited to do this, and it'll be a great experience. And I also need to give credit to my English department, because a lot of these things came from them. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for attending our TIC sessions. On the back of the agenda, there is a feedback form. If you guys could take 1 or 2 minutes to fill that out right now, that would be awesome. And it's also been emailed to you. Those of you on Zoom, also, please go to the feedback form. And also, if you have not registered for today's session, please do so, or find one of us and we can help you. Our next session is March 9th, and it is CTE and other. So if you know of any teachers at your school that might want to join us, it is March 9th. Thank you.